15% of the workforce do their strongest work in the wee hours between midnight and sunrise.
When we were hunter-gatherers, someone in the tribe had to stay up at night to watch for predators. So it's always been very beneficial to our species.
What's that experience like?
As a night owl, I'm much better creatively after the sun goes down. We're missing out on getting the best out of our people.
The 3:30 a.m. Club. Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. What are you doing at 3:30 a.m.? For most of you, I'm guessing you're fast asleep, deep into dream world, but what if I told you that's exactly the time when more than 1 in 10 people are doing their best work? Indeed, one study found about 15% of the workforce do their strongest work in the wee hours between midnight and sunrise. Some are late-night keyboard warriors, informally known as night owls, while others are extreme early risers, sometimes called larks, who naturally wake up at 3 a.m. or even earlier. It's all part of the result of some people's circadian rhythms, known as chronotypes, falling into this bucket. The only problem is we work in a world that's deeply rooted in a 9-to-5 culture. Some struggle by pushing through into crazy long days. Others try to sneak in naps, but either way, it's not a problem to, well, yawn at. Some experts say it's these very people who often have great ideas that could help their businesses. But how should firms handle this? Can they even handle it? Today, let's try and understand a little bit better what it's like to actually live and work with one of these outlier chronotypes, and also learn what leaders can do to deal with the workforces that are members of the 3:30 a.m. Club. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. You can also read about this subject today in a great feature in our Briefings magazine, available at airports and online. With us now is, well, a member of this late night crew. His name is Dr. Chris Kaufman, founder of Human Complex Systems, a boutique consulting firm that helps organizations leverage learning science. As an avowed night owl, who has also trained executive teams for over 30 years, he probably has this perfect combination of personal experience and leadership development insight to speak on this topic. Chris, it's really good to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
So, Chris, in our Briefings feature I just mentioned, we have a pretty fascinating chart of your typical workday or work night, as the case turns out. Can you briefly talk us through it? Like, what does a normal 24 hours look like to you?
I'm much better creatively after the sun goes down. In the morning, there are set routines that if I have to, because of work or other demands, if I'm awake, I will do them. But I will not give my creative side much work because it's just not effective during those daylight hours. So as a night owl, you hit that peak, at least for me, at around 8 o'clock after dinner, and then keeps going to around, as I'd say, easily from 8. The peak is really 8 to midnight for me. But that peak from a leadership position means we're missing out on really getting the best out of our people.
You once had to work in a traditional corporate 9-to-5 structure, and you said it was like you were being emotionally just brutalized. Tell me a little bit more about that. What's that experience like for people like you that aren't naturally predispositioned to really focus and work those hours?
It's brutal because you really want to, in any type of role, if you're engaged, you really want to give your best. And when you're in those hours, you realize that portions of your brain are not really functioning as well as they should. The best example that I can give metaphorically is imagine, not getting much sleep and then having to take a really long drive, right? You go through this kind of mini cycle of terror of like, I'm not prepared for this, but I'm going to keep going because I'm here and I'm on this highway and I know what's in front of me and I kind of know I can do it, but I know I'm not prepared because I'm really starting to not care about what I'm doing. And I'm just hoping I can keep going without anything flying at me that I will make a mistake at.
The time has come to make a choice, Mr. Anderson. Either you choose to be at your desk on time from this day forth, or you choose to find yourself another job.
That's a scene from the movie The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves plays a character who'd likely be a night owl, but is forced onto the schedule of his 9-to-5 job. The bosses in this scene, kind of inflexible attitude here, may echo the view of some real life companies, even though larks and night owls can be just as productive as others. One study even found those who stay up late can have superior cognitive functioning to other chronotypes. So Christopher, if you had a megaphone to all leaders right now, what would you tell them would be the best way to manage employees with this night owl chronotype like yours?
You pay rent for the full 24 hours. Okay. So the bottom line is use that office the full 24 hours. Number two, there's a famous viral memo that's just going out of a very, large telecommunication company about return to work. Okay. That company simply exists because people need mobile technologies 24/7. And yet they want their workers to live a alternative lifestyle to their own customers. So make sure that you develop a internal culture that is identical to your customers' culture. And then finally, trust in all that technology that exists and that many companies pushed into large organizations, right? Those communication capabilities, those dashboards, those Slack channels, all of that gives you digital touch points. And if coupled with intelligent management, you should be able to 24-hour be able to see what people are doing.
So of course, many bosses say the downside, right, to giving employees too much flexibility around when they work is that collaboration suffers because night owls and larks aren't always available when team members are working. What in your mind is a solution to that? Have you thought about that one?
You should have what I call the 4 Ps, your pulse, right? And that pulse is a check. Are you okay? Are you handling the workload? All right. Can we do that over, a video conference? Yeah, but maybe once a month or maybe twice a month, we come in and we do a gut check and go, okay, are my team people working? The second thing is process. Well, process, that's any number of Kanban or Monday. I can name the list of all the different process tracking. Your manager should have that, and you should have a digital touch point that everyone's being held to. Then you have what I call product. Do we have a product for this division? Do we have a product? And is it being delivered on time? And if not, yeah, you're going to have to come in. And then finally, you probably need a KPI set of dashboards, and that's your panorama look. Right? You need to see, okay, my division, my teams are working, they're on process, they're doing the deliverable, but are they syncing with the customer and the other teams?
Chris, thank you for taking time to share your thoughts here today. Lots of really specific tasks, really specific things that we can all do as both employees and leaders. So really appreciate it. And at midday of all times, you're shining right here when you should be sleeping. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
We've looked closely at a first-person perspective on what it's like to have a different chronotype at work. After the break, we'll take a step back and look at some of the evolutionary and biological reasons for this trait, as well as some more key tips for bosses managing workers who may have them. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
We react differently in our bodies when it comes to a crisis.
Facing increasing pressure to grow their companies or to justify pricey AI budgets, many leaders find themselves wondering if creating a crisis, whether it's setting early deadlines on a project or repeatedly shifting plans, could help. However, critics say that manufacturing a crisis can create confusion about what's urgent versus what's important, and also lead to a loss of trust from employees.
You need to find someone to replace you.
Some boards are now offering incentives to CEOs that are contingent on them bringing in a successor. Why this new tactic? At a time when CEO tenure continues to shrink and CEO departures remain at record highs, experts say the cost of poor succession decisions couldn't be clearer.
If you're one of those people who's feeling a little burnt out at work lately, you're not alone.
Pretending to be fine despite significant inner turmoil may be becoming a norm in the office. 45% of US employees say they're, quote, emotionally drained from their work, and 51% say they feel, quote, used up at day's end. Experts say it's for this reason that maintaining one-on-one meetings, especially during the busy work months, is essential in supporting direct reports' mental health. For more insights from This Week in Leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode, The 3:30 a.m. Club.
I left an hour early so I wouldn't be late.
I'm
certainly glad I did. It took me 45 minutes just to find a parking place.
Right here. Well, we park inside the building. I'll show you how to punch in.
We're back talking about how over 1 in 10 workers are either night owls or larks, and how leaders can better manage them. With us now is Ariane Cohen, a longtime member of the Korn Ferry writing team. She wrote a deeply enlightening piece on this very topic for Korn Ferry's Briefings magazine that's chock full of fun insights that we are going to get into today. Ariane, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So that last clip featured Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in a movie I love, 9 to 5, talking about making it to work on time to punch in. Of course, punching in at 9 a.m. seems perhaps deeply unpleasant to those with atypical chronotypes. But Ariane, you found in your research that there's an actual evolutionary reason for all of us not being on the same schedule. Talk to me about that.
When we were hunter-gatherers, someone in the tribe had to stay up at night to watch for lions and other predators. So needless to say, night owl genes are very, very beneficial to our species. Over time, that evolved into people keeping the fire tended overnight, making sure that children didn't wander off onto the savannah. And so it's always been very beneficial to our species to have around 15% of the population up very late or very early. And that actually continues to today. About 16% of employees do evening or night shifts. And so we always have people watching the electrical grid, making sure that airplanes are safe. So you can tell all your night owl friends that they are night owls because their ancestors were up late watching for lions.
Taking this one step deeper, you also found that people with atypical chronotypes even have a different so-called clock gene, right? That triggers certain hormones to release at different times than most people. Tell me a little bit more about that. I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we all have clock genes. There are many of them, and they regulate our circadian rhythms. So they regulate our metabolism, the biological processes that have to happen at different times of day. They align us to sunrise and sunset, and they monitor our sleep-wake times. And at night, everyone gets a surge of melatonin. That's a hormone that puts us to sleep. And in the morning, we get a surge of cortisol, which wakes us up. But larks get a really robust surge of cortisol first thing in the morning, and night owls get a lot less, and it comes a lot later. So as you can imagine, this has a really big impact on someone's ability to work at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 10 a.m., right? Because a night owl is still under the influence of their melatonin surge that happened just a few hours earlier, if it's at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m.
For 6 months, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
That's a scene from the movie Fight Club, where Edward Norton describes what it's like being deeply sleep deprived, something probably many of you are familiar with. Ariane, you noted in your piece that one major downside to being a night owl that even they admit to is not getting enough sleep. You wrote that night owls often get 2 to 3 hours short of a typical kind of adult sleep need. And you actually spoke with a number of sleep experts and came up with a list of tips that night owls, myself being included, and also everyone else, can use to get better sleep. Can you run me through that list? I think it's helpful for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to eat in a way that supports your circadian rhythm. So that means that you want to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner over a 12-hour period and not eat within 3 hours of your bedtime. You want to be really consistent. So what tends to really blow things for people on night shifts is not so much that they're working nights, but that on their off days, they completely change their sleep schedule, and your body just can't handle that. And it's really important to educate your coworkers. So sleeping on an unusual sleep schedule only works if you're not getting work calls and work emails during your sleep times.
I do want to end on an interesting framework that you discussed in the piece about how savvy leaders can balance varying chronotypes into really successful kind of serial work. What do you mean by serial work here? And what does that look like in practice?
So the leaders who are really good at this are the ones who themselves are either extreme night owls or extreme larks, because it's very sensical to them. So what happens is you have your night owls and they do their work at night, and then they pass off those projects to the extreme larks, the people who are up very early. And then those people hand off those projects to the people who are working normal daytime hours. So you always have people working on things and you always have kind of projects moving along. The thing that usually screws it up is when team meetings are. And so the best time of day to do team meetings, if you have a bunch of different people who have different sleep habits, is actually early afternoon, because that's the time where it doesn't matter what your chronotype is, you're alert enough to do a meeting around 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
All right, Ariane, fantastic to have you here on again. Appreciate you coming. Definitely learn something new every time you're here. It's really useful, and I'm going to be looking at my own meeting schedule, that's for sure.
Thank you so much for having me.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya and Zachary Dorr. And it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time. Tumble out of bed and tumble out of bed and stumble to the kitchen. Pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come alive.